Hey everyone, I'm Chris Lesniak,
And I'm Rob Byer, and this is
the Debate Math Podcast.
Debating mathy topics and mathy pedagogy with mathy people just like you.
Let's get into this month's debate. Hello and welcome again to our Summer Hot Seat series.
As a reminder, we thought we'd change things up a little bit during the summer months, offering something different.
And don't worry, our regular debates will be back in the fall. But for now, we wanted to put some educators with interesting ideas or strong opinions in a hot seat where they will share their thoughts, and Rob and I will play the role of cross-examining them a bit.
These are topics where someone has some strong ideas, but we may not have been able to get a group together for a full-fledged debate. So our host role is now to be a bit of a devil's advocate.
And quick note, regardless of our personal thoughts on the topic, Rob and I will be pushing back on the ideas presented, so our questions do not necessarily reflect our personal views.
And with that, let's get into our next hot seat.
For this hot seat, we wanted to lean to the topic of teachers leaving the profession. It's a difficult choice, but is it okay to quit education? Well, let's ask our guests. First up, we have a motivational speaker, a self-care advocate, and the educator motivator. It's Laila Nur. Hi, Laila.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Chris. Hey, Rob.
Hey.
And Justin.
Can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
I am currently in Madison, Wisconsin, even though most people have known me for so long to be in Los Angeles, California. This is my new location. And I am a trainer at a software company. So that is my new role. I'm in tech.
And since this whole conversation is about leaving the profession, you used to be in education, correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that background?
Absolutely. So I spent about 9 years in education. So 6 years in the classroom, mostly high school. Got tricked into middle school 1 year. So that was fun. And I did 2 years as an on-site math coach, and then, or 1 year as on-site math coach. And then 2 years I worked for the district as a mastery learning and grading coach.
Okay. Well, welcome. And now the question we want to ask you, that we ask all of our guests, is when did math first become controversial to you?
Oh, I would have to say it was when I moved to California. I was 16. I moved to California to live with my dad, and I got to enroll, lucky me, at Laguna Hills High School. And my transcript came through, I believe this would have been my junior year. And so I'd already been in advanced math classes all my life. I was in summer math camps. And for my junior year, I'm pretty sure I was set to be in pre-calculus. But for whatever reason, when they saw my transcript and sat down with the counselor, they were like, not really sure about that. And they put me in Algebra 1. I am a junior. And so I go in this class. I'm definitely older than most of the students there. And, I talked to my counselor about it, after the first day. And I say, hey, I just don't think this is right. Like, I know what path I'm on. I just got out of accelerated, whatever. I think I did an accelerated geometry algebra 2 class in my sophomore year. And I said, hey, like, I'm supposed to be in recalc right now. And they're like, oh, I don't know. Did the whole trying to, push me to the side a little bit. And I think about the third day I was in that class, I finally walked up to the teacher and I said, hey, what do you plan to get to by the end of the year? And this is me. I had to advocate for myself. I said, what do you think is the final topic that you will cover by the end of the year? And I don't even remember what she told me. And I said, I could take your final exam right now. If I could take your final exam right now, whatever you would test students on in June and pass it, I think we need to have a conversation about me not being in this class. And because I was the person who finally had that conversation with the teacher and she realized how serious I was, that made the counselors finally realize how serious I was and to finally put me in the correct class. And, Laguna Hills High School was a place I'll say at the very least, it was a place. And to me, that was one of my first experiences, especially since, moving from Detroit, which where my school settings didn't look like that, where I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to have to fight a little bit harder when it comes to my education.
Thank you for that story.
And arguing alongside her in this hot seat is a guest from one of our past live debates. He's a math and science nerd, a father, a husband, student, a technology addict, feminist, numberjack, Hexagon fan, and sandwich evangelist, Justin Aion. Hi, Justin. We got here.
Yeah, baby. Hi. I am deeply honored.
Can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Sure thing. So I am about 40-minute east of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My current role in a mixture of client data specialist for a marketing company and semi-professional school board agitator for my local district.
Other than being a sandwich evangelist, as I've been struggling with this for a while, can you tell us about your teaching background?
Yeah. So before I left the classroom, I taught for 15 years in a couple of different districts. I was in New Jersey for 2 years and back to Pennsylvania to get my master's degree. Then taught an urban school for 7 years and then a very rural school for 3.5 years. And then helped to develop the curriculum and high school program, public charter school in the city of Pittsburgh.
Well, thanks for that. And now the question that we ask all of our guests: when did math first become controversial to you?
It's hard for me to pinpoint a specific moment where that happened. I think for me, where I first started to realize that it was a controversial thing is sort of that moment and setting circumstances when you're in a class and you get the answer right, you show all of your work. Teacher says, I can't give you credit. You didn't do it the way that I showed you how to do it. That always really, that rubs me the wrong way. And sort of watching current teachers still sort of do that bothers me. I understand why it's done. I get sort of the reasoning behind it in terms of pedagogy and efficiency, how much teachers degrade and are looking for specific things, how much of that is created by the various situation where teachers find themselves in. But comes down to the fact that for me, as long as a student is using sound mathematical reasoning and they can explain that reasoning, why do we care how they complete problems? We can encourage one direction or another, but take points off because you didn't do it the way I did. I had a mildly off temper. I took a home economics course in high school. This was like junior year, maybe senior year. And I was, at that point, I had been cooking and baking at my house for 10 years, always cooked and baked with my family. I was in charge of bringing dessert to family gathering. And then in home ec, you had to make brownies. Made the brownies, I used her recipe, used her ingredients, all of that stuff. And she took points off because they were too gooey. Right, like you're the appropriate. And it was that same sort of thing. Like everybody I gave them to was like, these brownies are amazing. Everybody else had like hockey puck or just like whatever it was. But that's a solid moment that stands out for me. I think we do that a lot in that as well. It's not just like, oh, you got the stitches wrong, this particular pillow that you were making, or the brownie incorrectly. Edible and delicious. That goal, right? And I can tell you how I got there, and we got the result that we were looking. So gooey brown.
Yes, thank you. Go gooey, delicious math too.
Gooey math. That should be the name of your next.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. And with that, let's get into the debate. We begin with opening statements from each of our guests. Our question today is it okay to quit education? You each have 2 minutes to present your opening arguments. Laila, you're up first, and your time begins now.
Ooh, hot seat. It is absolutely okay to leave education. I say that from experience of taking that leap of faith. I left education before I even had something lined up. I knew that I was in a space, I wasn't in my best self anymore. With where I'd been, I had moved from school to school, looking for not necessarily the ideal school, but for something that felt right, for something that felt like I was really making the difference I wanted to, that I had the agency that I wanted. I was looking for these things, and I moved from school to school just to realize, you know what? Okay, maybe I can find it in more of a leadership role. So I go and I become a coach, and even with trying to coach adults, it still felt like, I don't know if I felt like I was making even less of an impact in some ways. And then I moved and started working at the district. And that's when I really started to feel like, oh no, this is not going to work for me. And I talked with one of my coworkers for a while, and I said, there's so many things out there. And I feel like if you've been in education all your life, which many educators have, we don't really know what else is out there. We only know our field, right? I've been teaching and educating since I was 16 years old. So I don't know about other positions and jobs and roles that exist, but I knew that there were amazing things out there. And I knew that there was good healthcare other places. I knew that there was job security at other companies. And for me, it was just about taking that leap of faith and knowing that I was still going to be able to use my skills as an educator, just doing something slightly different. It just looks a little bit different. I'm a trainer. I'm training adults, but I get to train adults on something I never would have known about if I hadn't have made this shift. I know a lot about pharmacy and medications now. And who would have thought, right? But it's still fun. I still get to do a lot of things that I never thought I would do. And most importantly, there are quite a few previous or former teachers that I work with on my team. So I've still been able to find that community of people who I feel like kind of think and feel like me in that space. And it feels good.
Wow, thank you. And Justin, you're up next. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. I feel like I can't make a statement for an individual of, yes, you should leave, or no, you should stay. This is emotional work that requires a level of dedication and commitment, empathy and giving of yourself that it's not easy. If you're doing it correct, it's not easy. With that said, while I don't want to make decisions, I don't want to advocate, you should leave the classroom or you should stay in the classroom. Individuals got to make that choice for themselves. But I'm very much of the belief that all teachers should leave. I think I very much like Laila. I went between a couple of different schools trying to find a place that made me feel like I was the teacher I wanted to be. I always felt that way with the students, but trying to do what I felt was best for the kids and was right for the kids within a structure that did not agree or did not want that or had just different priorities was stifling and awful. It's a Sisyphean, right? You're constantly pushing that rock up the hill, and not just like, it doesn't just slip loose at the end. There is somebody actively kicking it out of your hand and then saying, go back down and get it. And that was working for me. Um, I think a big portion of it also was when the pandemic, suddenly all of the schools were closed and all the kids were sent home. The physical facilities were there, right? Teachers were scrambling and trying to figure out what they needed to do in order to do what was best for their kids. And we had this phenomenal, unique opportunity to completely revamp the education system, to revamp our priorities, to revamp the physical structure, to say, how do we organize classroom? How do we organize curriculum in a way that we had never before, because we're pumping kids through the buildings and the only break is summer. And that's the point where teachers need to take breath in order to not drive into a tree on their way to work. So we had this unique opportunity. We had 4 months where there was nobody in the building before anticipated summer break. We could have made these incredible changes, these remarkable shifts in education and educational thinking and fundamentals, and we just didn't. And not only did we not just not do it, but we actively fought like hell to get back to a status quo that was not working for so many people, not just teachers, but students, some administrators, I guess, but not working for parents, not working for kids, not working for teachers, and therefore not working for society, but was the thing that we knew. And so we had to fight so hard to get right back there. I think that was a big turning point for me to be able to say, you know, I can do good for my kids within the classroom, but the good that I can do for those individual students is not counteracting the harm that my presence is doing by simply upholding the system that is continuing to oppress and do disservice to these kids that I really liked a lot.
Thank you both. So I am hearing a lot of passion from your thoughts, and thank you for sharing your journey. I want to start with a small question. Just, you both talked about you had each tried several different schools or different positions, like trying to find that good fit. How do you know you've like tried enough? Like if a teacher's in it right now and like switches a school once or twice, like have they given enough of an effort, or are they, you know, how do they know if they're like leaving too soon? Like, how do you know if you've tried enough places? And maybe, like, did you all just not find the right fit yet?
Yeah, I think if you have to ask yourself, have I tried enough schools? I think you might be at that point, just to be honest with you, because the first school, it was like, hey, there's not enough collaboration with the educators. And then I get to the next school and it was just like, my goodness, like there is no accountability for students here. So it's like the school structure itself was problematic. Then I get to another school and it's like, I am not going to deal with people disrespecting me and these helicopter parents and this admin that doesn't support me and that wants to disrespect me. So it's like I was playing the grass is greener in every situation. And every time I got to another space where I was getting that other thing, the reality is that there was something else that wasn't there. And it's not to say that there's this holy mecca of a school, but because I know that it's very unlikely for there to be this holy mecca of a school, it's like I cannot continue to walk these halls and keep my mouth shut and hold my head down and just yes ma'am you, because that's not me. That ain't me at all. I got in trouble for that not being me. And when I started to get in trouble for that not being me, I said, I'm in the wrong place because no one is hearing my concerns because they're valid concerns. Like, I'm not just being angry. I'm not just being problematic. I'm not pushing back because I just want to do what I want to do and go off curriculum. I'm pushing back because there is something fundamentally wrong with some of the policies and the rules that you all have and the way you're doing things. And because you're not hearing me, I'm going to just go ahead and take a step back.
Yeah, Justin, do you feel similar?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I so I have taught at three, four, five different institutions. Really, just four. The other one was like 2 months, and then COVID hit. Uh, But of those places, everywhere that I have been, there has always been a faculty member or more who that was their place. I believe that every school is perfect for some teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And the difficulty there for me is, and this is where I have to like record this session and then send it to my therapist because she's going to agree. One of my like personality traits is that like seeking perfection, not being satisfied enough the good. That idea of, um, perfect is the enemy of the good. There is no, I did not find the perfect place for me. Most of the places I taught were good. They were fine. They weren't the place for me. And when I tried to make them the place for me, exactly as Laila said, I got the pushback of like, that's not really how we operate here. That's fine. I can try and change what I can change, but ultimately, if that is not the kind of place this is, then this is not the kind of place for me. As far as like determining have I looked enough, I definitely had that debate with myself and I talked about it with my wife and my family, and that idea of like, this is now the third or fourth school that I've been to that has really worked. At some point, we need to start considering maybe there won't be a place. Or if there is a place, I just don't have the energy to keep looking for it. And I got to find something else because that search is also exhausting. It's important. And I think as long as you have the energy to do so, keep looking, right? Like if you're in a school and you don't like it, keep looking until you don't have the energy to look anymore. And then it's time to look outside of the classroom.
I kind of following up with that. So the question I hear people say all the time when they think about leaving is, what about the students? What do you say to your teacher or admin or something when they say, like, if you're going to quit, what about the students?
If the people who asked that question were so concerned with the students, then they would be working harder to make things better for the students. Instead, what that question does puts the emotional energy on you. That is, I might get some pushback for this. That's an abuse. It is how teachers are emotionally exploited and abused by the system in which they operate and the society that does not adequately treat them with respect. Right? It feels very much the same way with this part out too. Like pro-life advocates who say you can always adopt, like give the kid up for adoption. Okay, well, how many children have you adopted? There are children in the system who need to be adopted, who are looking for foster parents and permanent parents. So many that system is overflowing. And it's the same thing with education. Yeah, I can work with the 30 kids in this one class or the 150 kids that are on my roster. And yeah, I'll make a difference for those 150 kids. But again, my presence there is tacitly supporting a system that is doing harm to those kids.
Yeah, Laila, you want to add more?
I was going to say, I wholeheartedly agree. That's how we've gotten tricked into working weekends and working outside of our work hours. And, it's just what's expected of us
It's part of the job.
Yeah, to take on this emotional toll and for the kids to be our responsibility. And yes, like when they are in my class and I'm teaching them and they're on my roster, like they absolutely are But one, I'm not going to teach forever. Two, we're talking about I'm only one teacher at a school, right? So you're putting, using that argument, it falls flat because there's other math teachers there. Would you say the same thing if they left? Are you saying it to me? And this is something that me and my friends talk about all the time, is that when you're good, when you're great, you get so much more responsibility, especially in education, because there is this expectation that because you are competent and you know how to do your job well and the kids love you, that here's more responsibility and there's more emotional toll. But that's just not fair to me, right? And then for somebody like, I would imagine many people who say, you know what, okay, yes, for this 150 kids I have, I'm going to make it a difference. But you know what? I want to try to make a difference on a grander scale. I want to get into leadership like I did. And I said, hey, I want to coach all the teachers at the school. So that means that all 2,000 kids have a great experience. And then that doesn't go well. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to work for the district. So all the kids in the whole district have the opportunity to get an amazing math experience. And then that gets pushed back because my ideas are pushing too far past what is accepted. If that's not within the box they've been living, I try to go too far outside the box. They're like, whoa, our box is this big. Your box is a little too big for us. So it's like, for me, there was no winning. It's about the kids. But even when I myself tried to really think about the kids and I left the classroom to make a larger impact, I still wasn't able to actually think about the kids and do for the kids. So the argument just falls flat.
Yeah, I think about sort of my last year in the classroom when I told admin that I was leaving at the end of the year, that I would not be seeking a rehiring. I would not be. And not just like in that place, I was leaving education completely. I was told, that's really sad. We really need your leadership. And my response was, you had my leadership and you didn't want it. What you wanted was my compliance.
Come on.
What you wanted was a mouthpiece. What you wanted was my strong voice and my personality pushing forward your leadership. If you wanted my leadership, then you would have actually done something with that, and I'd still be staying.
You wanted my face, my name, my popularity. You wanted those things.
Nobody wants the face.
So I'm wondering, as we're talking about this, and I'm hearing you two talk about, if you're moving from school to school, trying to find that spot to where, like, you feel like you're making a difference, and then you get to the point where you're like, I'm tired of searching for that, right? My question is, all jobs are hard. So why is quitting teaching acceptable? Why is that something that we're okay with, like, having a podcast about? Why should we be okay with, like, teachers leaving in droves?
Well, for me, it's because I experienced being in another environment, being in another organization where I expressed my dissatisfaction. And you know what happened? They heard me and they made a change. I said, hey, I'm not happy doing this thing. Hey, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't fit for me. I know my strengths. I know my skill set. I am burning out. I cannot do this. And they said, you know what? We don't want to lose you, so let's figure out what we're going to do. And then they did it. And that's not to say that everyone has to be catered to, I want my classroom to be bigger. I need my classroom size to be smaller, and, every little thing. But when you're approached, when leadership or admin or district or whomever is approached with valid concerns, and all you get is like a very, empty promises, a look, a head nod, or more things we don't need. It's like we're in an organization, we're in a system that is going to do everything they can to, like Justin said, keep us compliant, to keep us happy. Again, you think having lifetime health care in LAUSD is on accident? Do you think that that is a tactic to say that, hey, you retire from us, you get health care, you still have it? You think that is not a tactic? It absolutely is. Right. So if I'm continuing to come to you and say these are things, these are real issues, and it's not just a me issue. This is a other people issue. This is how about we change this and because this can be better? And they're like, I don't know. That's why it's okay. I'm in another place, another space where I express my concerns. I express things that I think could be better, that could be improved. And I'm either told, you got the go ahead, make it happen. You want to make this better? You have an idea, a vision? Let's see the mock-up. Let's see if we can get the time for you to, set the time aside to make it happen. Or, you know what? Let's get a couple of people at the table who are a part of this conversation to say, let's, how are we going to approach this? Because I think it's valid. I don't get dismissed. And I think that's the difference for me.
I mean, you looked into it, though. And real quick, Justin, because I want to kind of touch on this. You got lucky going into another spot that values you, right? But who's to say that, the people on this, podcast, who's to say that other professions aren't in a similar situation as teachers, and they're not just leaving in droves. They bounce around job to job, but they're not leaving in droves. Whereas when I think, and now Justin, I'll come to you for the same question that I just asked, was why are we, when teachers are leaving, we're celebrating. Why, hey, congratulations, you were able to go find happiness. Why is that okay when we are looking at the kids? I guess I have a hard time with that. That's why I'm asking.
You're right that you could absolutely find yourself somewhere where it feels exactly the same, but at least you're looking for something. At least you're trying to find it. I know you may think it's the same argument of bouncing from school to school, but it's not, because you're in a very similar environment. You're within one system that operates the same. You're under the same set of rules and obligations and policies. I am now in a different space. I'm in a different sector. I'm in a different field that operates under a completely different set of policies, rules, and expectations. And if I go to a completely another world where I decide to become a contractor tomorrow and build houses, they're going to operate under a completely different set of policies and rules and expectations. And I have to be able to go explore those things, even if it doesn't pan out, but continuing to bounce around just within the education system. I'm hoping for this huge change in these big differences when it's very likely I'm not going to find that. Now, maybe state to state, it's possible, but big picture, I think you're pretty much seeing what you're going to get.
I would definitely agree with that. I think there is something unique about education that might exist in a couple other professions, but for the most part, I haven't seen other professions, other jobs where you are on day one expected to have the same sort of level of expertise and responsibility as someone who's been doing that job for 30 years. I'm sure there are places have positions like junior teacher, things along those lines, but ultimately, my first year teaching, when I did not have a degree in education in my undergrad. I had a degree in mathematics and economics, but I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So that's why I was in New Jersey. They have an emergency certification program, so I could take my education classes at night while I was teaching during the day. Worked really well for me, but it also means there I was, walking in on day one, not only with no teaching experience, with no education background, no classes in education, none of that. And my workload and responsibilities were identical to the math teacher who was retiring at the end of that year after having been there for 42 years. Now, we taught different classes, but that doesn't matter. The responsibilities were exactly the same. If anything, mine were more, because as a retiring teacher, they were like, all right, we'll see you. Have a great retirement. that whole last year was sort of a write-off for him. But I don't think there are other professions that do that. When I got hired at my current company, one of my first questions when I signed the contract was, okay, what do you want me to have done and ready for the first day? And my boss looked at me like I was kind of nut. He was like, you just log on at 8:00 and then we'll talk about it. The idea that there was nothing that I needed to prepare for the start of the first day. Whereas in education, I got to prepare lessons. I got to prepare my classroom. Everything has to be set up ahead of time. And I don't want to say that teaching is the hard profession, because that's definitely not true, right? Teaching is too hard for some teachers and too easy for other teachers. And things that I find easy in the classroom would be impossible for other teachers, and vice versa, right? People are people and need to find the spot where they fit. So there isn't a one size fits all. There isn't any of that. But there is something unique about teaching where so much what we are expected to do is outside of our working hours, outside of our responsibilities. And on top of all of the fact that what we're doing is emotional labor. It is exhausting, and we are on stage all day, the entire time that we are with kids. We are on, which is exhausting. And not acknowledging that in a meaningful way is doing horrific things to the teaching profession. When you ask about why is it okay to leave? When is it okay? Or any of those, for me, it's all about, right? You said other professions have it hard, other jobs have it hard. Yeah, they do. Which is why some people don't want to do those things, right? I don't want to be a lawyer because I love arguing. I keep coming on podcasts. But I don't want to do the other aspects of it. I don't want to do the 40 hours of research in 3 days. I don't want to write long psych papers. I don't want to do any of that. I didn't become an English teacher because I didn't want to grade essays. All of those things are how we choose what we want to do. For me, it's the balance, right? So any job you're going to do is going to be hard. It's going to have stress. It's going to have stressors. There is always going to be something better and something cooler somewhere else, right? So you have to balance the benefits that you get from that position. In teaching, a lot of those benefits are emotional. They are social. They are meant not just financial, because Lord knows there are no financial real benefits being a teacher, but you balance, right? When the joy of being with my kids in class was no longer counteract the agony or the stress of simply existing within that system, that's when that balance is now out of whack, and we got to be done, because otherwise I'm going to stay and I'm going to be doing harm. I will be actively harming my kids because they know that I'm frustrated, angry, and regardless of whether I want to or not, it will come out. It is going to be taken out on them and their education, and I can't do the best for them if I am not taking care of. I am not taking care of me, and if that balance.
So it's interesting because you talked about harm. At some point, it becomes more harmful. I guess another question I have, and Justin, you said at the beginning that maybe all teachers should leave the classroom. I'm wondering, what harm will that do to the education system? Where are we if teachers are leaving and leaving and leaving? I mean, education is the foundation of everything that goes on. So if we have teachers leaving like crazy and we're totally okay and we're promoting it, where does that leave education? Where does that leave our future? Where does that leave the kids? And what these upcoming generations are even going to look like?
So I think about that in like medical terms. I do not like going to the doctor at all. I'm a pretty solidly typical middle-aged white man in America. Whatever's wrong, I can power through. I got it, no problem. Right? If I wake up on Monday and I have a headache, I'll take some Advil. If I wake up on Tuesday with a headache, I'll take some Advil. It's fine. If I wake up every day for like 6 weeks with a headache, I might start thinking, hey, I should probably maybe do something. But if I wake up on Monday with blood streaming out of my ears, I'm going to. Individual teachers saying, I think maybe it's time for me to leave, is waking up with a headache. The school is going to hurt until they hire someone to replace. The kids are going to have maybe not as an experienced teacher, and then that teacher will learn how to work with those kids. But if teachers leave education and then it is impossible for the system to ignore that changes need to be made. If every teacher in a school leaves, admin cannot ignore that and simply say, well, this was just play. I leave the school. But my principal says, well, we wish him luck somewhere. The entire 10th grade teaching team leave the school. They have to look at why that is the case and have to start making those changes. You need that thing. You need the reason to actually go to the hospital, to actually go to the doctor. If all you have is a small headache, you could have a tumor that is going to kill you and you'll never know. But if you wake up streaming blood from your ears, that's a huge red flag. You're going to the doctor. You're going to get the scan. You're going to figure out what's wrong, and you're going to make the changes that you need to make. How many people say, like, I was going about living my life and then I had a heart attack and it was a real wake up, right? It's not like I had a little bit of tingling in my feeling in my fingers and that was a real wake up. No, it isn't. It's something to know, but it's not a wake up. And especially after the pandemic, where we refused to make those changes, fought to get back to where we were, it became incredibly obvious to me that we will never make those huge changes unless we are forced to do so. And the only way to do it is this mass exodus beyond a tipping point that can be replaced. When more people are leaving education than are graduating from education programs, that's when we're going to start saying, wait a minute, why does my kid have 70 other kids in their Algebra 1 class? What's going on? Now we need to start looking in the mirror. Now we need to start making these changes. You do drips and drips and drips. You're not going to fix it when you have water rushing through the wall. Oh crap, we got to fix this break. I like analogy.
Laila, do you want to add to that at all?
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna ditto Justin. Ditto. Me too. Yeah, it's gonna be the wake up call. I think it's really difficult to get everybody, any group of people, to all do one thing. So is the reality of it, will it happen? No. But you gotta also think about the schools that when they make a decision that, we need to revamp our school, and they clean house. If individual schools can sometimes just go through and clean house and say, we're just going to let everybody go and you got to reapply for your job. Kind of the same thing, right? Teachers should also be willing to say, what, if we all, skip out of here holding hands, we'll all reapply under, a particular pretense. It's like, when we go on strike, when individual districts go on strike, what if all the districts went on strike, right? If somehow, some way, everybody did it at the same time, And even if it wasn't everybody, if it was just enough, it's a wake up call. And And yeah, it, if you will, quote unquote, like, oh, we're widening the gap or we're, pushing students even farther behind. But I mean, how much farther are we pushing kids behind at this point? It's
And all those measures are arbitrary.
yeah, I don't think that, it's going to make such a massive impact that, oh, if we do this, and make these moves and make this statement for the next 3 months that, oh my goodness, like the detriment, because the reality is that if we stayed in the schools for 3 months, like we're not seeing that needle moving at all. Like the needle's not moving anyway. So even if the needle goes back a half a centimeter, okay. I would rather go back a half a centimeter to be able to move forward 5 than to just sit stagnant for wherever it is, for as long as it's going to have to sit there if we continue doing the same things. So, I mean, it'll be tough, kids will have to figure out where do kids go, during those times. But again, teachers making that decision forces others to get involved, forces the parents to say, you know what, oh, maybe they're onto something because I don't have anywhere to send my kids while I gotta go to work. It forces other people to consider the impacts of those types of those big type of decisions being made. So
The first 2 weeks of the pandemic, all of social media was like, teachers are heroes. Teachers should make $1 million a year. Boy, we aren't nice enough to teach. And then like 8 weeks in, parents were like, get these goddamn kids out of house.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like we were lazy. Like there was a really interesting Twitter thread about just like how quickly that switch flipped back. And the society got like taste of what it would be like without school. And they did not like it at all. Instead of doing the efforts to improve things, they did the efforts to send everything back the way that it was.
And on that note, I'm going to end our questioning round.
We will now end by giving our guests a few minutes to make their final arguments to you.
And up first, we'll go with Laila. Laila, the floor is yours.
I'm going to close out by saying it is absolutely 100% okay to leave education. And I say that because as somebody who has been looking for their purpose, looking for something that's going to make them happy, looking for things that is going to bring them joy, where I feel like I'm using my whole self in the work that I do and I'm not being stifled. I am, not to say that where I am is perfect, but I would have never gotten as close as I am without leaving education. I'm now in a space where I have the flexibility and the freedom to do things within my role, like within my actual job. And get this, I can take off without leaving a lesson plan. So, it's crazy. I get to use my sick days when I want them. It is absolutely baffling the things that you will experience outside of the world of education. And do I miss my summer and my winter breaks? Oh, I absolutely do. I was wondering why I was getting angry around January. But I will say, I've also learned to work within the system which most people work within, across the world. And everybody's not in education and gets summers off and has a 3-week, winter break. And teachers get it rightfully because they absolutely need it. But most folks that are, working don't get that luxury, right? And I've learned to maneuver that. And the reality is that within the work that I do, I don't need it as much. I don't have the need to take 2 months off because I am so burnt out and exhausted. So I say it's okay to leave education because your dream job that is going to uplift you and bring you joy and lift your spirit and may bring you, help make you feel like you are, reaching your purpose and your goals in life could very well be out there, could very well be within your reach, but you won't know until you make the decision to say, this is no longer where I'm happy, even though I love these kids. Because do I miss teaching? Oh, yeah, I absolutely. All the time I miss teaching kids. But there's so many other things about it that I don't miss that is enough for me never to go back. Oh, I'll take that back. I won't say never. I'll say, yeah, at least not go back right now. Because I know that right now where I'm at, I'm happier.
Thank you. And Justin, you have 2 minutes.
I will definitely echo all of those sentiments. Teaching is a labor of love if you're doing correctly, if you're doing it well. It is emotional labor if you're doing it correctly, if you're doing it well. And all of those things take a toll. Teachers need to make a decision for themselves of whether that toll is balanced by the benefits that they are getting from that emotional labor. For many, many years, the balance worked for me. For many years, it was worth it. And then it wasn't. And when it became not worth it, I needed to make that change. I think as a society, I don't know if it's American or human, Western, whatever it is, but the idea of the sunk cost fallacy, that here I've spent, 15 years in the classroom. Well, I can't leave now. Look at all this time and effort that I've already put into. Look at all these student loans so that I could do this thing that I truly do love, that fulfills me emotionally in ways that, no office job is ever meant. But there are jobs that are not office jobs. And there are jobs that will fulfill you emotionally, maybe, and maybe not. We also need to recognize the fact that you don't necessarily need to be fulfilled emotionally by your work. Your labor can absolutely just be something that you do to pay your bills in between the rest of your life. And when I started spending more emotional energy in my school than I did with my own kids, that was a red flag for me. I can't, as much as I loved my students, as much as I would do anything for those kids, the one thing I wouldn't do was trade my own kids. My own kids will always come, no matter what. While I could do both, did both. Then when I couldn't do both, my kids. And I think that that's obviously I think that's an okay thing to pick. But I think everybody needs to make that decision. If you don't have kids, if you need to be spending more time with your pets, great, do it. If you are missing out on hobbies, if you are not reading enough books, if you just want to be doing something else, you need to watch the latest season of Lost again to understand what exactly the writers were trying to do there. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Teach as long as you are satisfied and happy doing it. And as soon as you're not, get the hell out. Because you're hurting yourself, you are hurting the kids, and you are hurting hurting.
Thank you both for that. And that concludes this hot seat debate. I hope this gives folks out there lots to think about. I know you gave me plenty to think about.
Now it's up to our listeners to take a moment, ponder this hot seat discussion, share with friends, and consider what's resonated with you. Be sure to go to our Twitter or X at DebateMathPod to share your thoughts on this debate.
And huge thanks to our two guests here, Laila and Justin. You were awesome. You were passionate and so thoughtful. I love that you are not afraid to speak your mind, and I learned a lot from listening to you.
And thanks to those who are listening. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this.
And as we wrap up, Laila, where can listeners find you?
Oh, where can they find me? Oh, goodness gracious. Don't come looking for me. I will say you could find me on Twitter at Miss Laila Nur, so at MSLAILANUR, or on my website if you're trying to, book me for a little something. You can find me at www.misslailanur.com. So those are probably the two best ways to reach me.
And we will link all those in the show notes.
And Justin, where can listeners find you?
I'm normally huddled up on the couch with a pint of ice cream. You're welcome to join. I'm going to share. If you bring your own, you're welcome. Actually, more popcorn than ice cream, like a mixture of cheddar and kettle corn. Those two together go so well. Sweet, salty. I'm still on Twitter, Justin Aion. It will always be Twitter. I don't care what Techno Daddy says. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I don't know, just like around, I'll drop my Venmo if anybody wants to shoot me some cash.
Oh, that's a good one. I'll drop my Cash App.
Well, thank you both. And thank you all for listening. Cheers.
Want to learn more about incorporating debate activities into your math classroom? Go to luzniak.com/podcast to sign up for my mailing list and get your first set of example debate activities you could use with your students today. Go to luzniak.com/podcast.
Don't forget to reach out to us with comments and questions on debatemath.com or follow us on Twitter at debatemathpod and follow along with #debatemathpod.
Rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts.
Or wherever you listen to this podcast. Your feedback is super important to us.
Well, that's all from us.
Looking forward to debating with you more next episode. Until next time, cheers.